Hello, Betsperters. We are back for another episode of the Byron Show over here at Betsperts Golf. It is the Genesis Invitational. We got Tiger Woods back in the field. We got Tiger Woods back hosting this tournament. We have got golf on one of the PGA Tour's esteemed golf course venues at Riviera Country Club. So the man to break it all down with me this week is going to be my main man, Ron Kloss, aka PGA Splits 101 on X. How are you doing, Ron?
You know what I want to see this week, Byron? Look, everyone loves a good underdog winner, but we've had 6 in a row to start the year. Maybe minus Wyndham Clark, who probably never should have been 100-1, but
Sure.
I want to see a stacked leaderboard coming down the stretch on Sunday. We have the very best of the PGA Tour here at one of the most iconic courses in America. Throw Tiger into the mix, and hopefully we have an elite viewing experience these next few days.
Yeah, I would say the tournaments have been fun to watch. Especially if you aren't too concerned about losing 6 consecutive outrights to some no names, so to speak. But it would be nice to just see some thoroughbreds galloping down the finish line, down the stretch there for a little while. Yeah, we haven't really had anyone. We've had Scotty in the mix a few times. He's been in the top of the board pretty much the whole year, but just hasn't got it done yet. So I'll have some takes on that shortly. But before we do that, Ron, let's dive into the rabbit hole. Let's dive into what you're kind of using to dissect the different stats this week. I know this is a golf course that the rabbit hole will most likely be as useful as ever.
Yeah, there's a ton of different angles you could take this week. So I mean, obviously this is a stronger field event. So, what I did is I actually combined difficult scoring conditions. Riviera is one of the toughest non-major courses on tour. A little easier over the past few years. But nonetheless, combining difficult conditions with strong fields and, just real interesting looking at the players. I'll be getting into Will Zalatoris a little bit later on here, but, he's a guy who just unbelievable how much he pops when the fields are strong and you have these tough conditions. So, that's definitely one of the things I definitely kind of started my research. And another thing, like there's a lot of key stats this week, but like, for example, par 4 scoring is really important. These are really difficult par 4s. So what I did is I part of the rabbit hole is you can actually go in and look at other courses that have difficult par 4s. And, I checked that box. So looking at those courses, and, that gives you another angle. And then bogey avoidance is going to be really key this week as well. And so not just looking at normal bogey avoidance, but on difficult courses. And so, looked at that. We've got Kikuyu rough. So, really over the past, I think I went back 5 years, the PGA Tour used to play a WGC event at Chapultepec. And then Torrey Pines has Kikuyu, and then obviously here at Riviera. And so, if you wanted to really dig into the rabbit hole and get into, best players from the Kikuyu rough, we have obviously, I think it's 73% of all approach shots are from, 150 plus yards here. And so just kind of looking at those ranges and see kind of which players, and again, you don't have the best sample size, so you have to be careful with some of the noise, but there's just so many angles and, driver heavy courses. Riviera has kind of turned into one of those lately, with players, kind of trying to overpower the dog legs, at least some of them are. So yeah, there's so much to explore. And I've tried to tweet out some of those ways you can use the rabbit hole this week, even the floor ceiling filter, looking for upside, looking for consistency. And so, yeah, just it's real interesting to kind of dig into that.
Yep, totally agree with you there, Ron. I think it's a golf course that I think has lost a bit of its defense. I know we've seen some really low scores in the last few years, like you mentioned. I think since the analytical side of golf has really taken the world by storm, golfers are less interested in trying to do the old-fashioned, let me try and hit as many fairways as I can versus let me just pound that ball all the way down the fairway as far as I can. So I think that's kind of the direction golf has moved in, and I think Riv is kind of a little susceptible to that, but it still holds up pretty true for the most part, because I think one of the nuances about this golf course is how precise you have to be on approach, because the Kikuyu rough is very spongy, very sticky, very tacky. You're not able to bounce your ball up out of the rough. That's usually what most courses allow you. They give you that little bottleneck to kind of bounce your ball up onto the green out of the rough, because you can't generate any spin. But this golf course, if you're landing short of the green, it's stopping right in that grass. It's going to sponge up and stop. And I think that's what makes it really interesting and a very nice golf course to watch guys try and take apart.
Yeah, and I think if you look at two of the greatest golfers of all time, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, never managed to win here. And so,
Yes.
Patrick Cantlay has a pretty good quote on this course. He says the greens aren't overly firm. And speaking of that, they've had over 7 inches of rain here in the last couple of weeks. We might see a much softer course, which means things like, carry distance are more important, things like that. But he goes on to say, it's not a crazy long course. The course always defends itself. There's no tricks. There's no water on the entire course. There's no goofiness, and he ends the quote saying he thinks it's the best test, on tour. And so, yeah, everything's kind of out in front of you. There's, zero water hazards. There's only 58 bunkers, but they're some of the deepest on tour and some of the most difficult to hit out of. And, it's when you look at it, has the second lowest driving accuracy greens and regulation combination on tour. And so, at the same time, you have the fourth largest greens. And so I think it kind of speaks to, the undulations on the course, on the fairways, the slope on the greens themselves, some of the toughest greens to put on tour. And so, yeah, just a difficult all around test. And that's kind of what I'm looking for this week is players who have an all around game. Don't necessarily have to be the best putters in the world, but you have some guys like a Max Homa who just excels, on POA and on tough greens from, 5 to 15 feet, that important range.
Yep. Let's chat about them. I think someone that's an elite ball striker and has found some reasonable, relatively good success compared to his baseline on POA greens is Scotty Scheffler, who leads the pack here at 11.5. Rory McIlroy sitting behind him 11.2. Xander Schauffele and Victor Hovland sitting at 10.1 and 10K flat a pop. Chat about these four guys at the top here, and then we'll dive into a little more of a hefty 9K range than we've experienced in the last few tournaments. My favorite play, as always, is Scotty Scheffler, but I think just playing him in DFS is just so freaking difficult for me. I can't get the other five guys right with Scotty. And I think if I'm taking a look at his DFS dollar per DFS point, it's not necessarily the most affordable price tag for how many points Scotty generates for you. There's other guys like Hovland and Cantley and Aubert that typically, they're the better bang for your buck, so to speak. So I think that's kind of the route I might be taking this week. And I'll be diving into Victor Hovland. I think from my ownership projections, Ron, I think I'm seeing him as the least owned of the bunch, still in the mid-teens. But I think people are kind of overreacting to what we've seen Victor get up to in the last two starts, particularly at Pebble, where it's a very wedge-intensive golf course from the fairway for the most part. Victor's ultimate strength is his long irons out of the rough. So that's talking about just completely flipping the script on what he does best. He had to do the opposite last time he played golf. So I'm cool kind of reverting back to Victor's long-term baseline. If he's going to be going off I think there's a bit of a weather edge this morning, the last time I checked. The morning wave on Thursday seems like isn't going to be getting much wind at all until the afternoon. Once that rolls around, it gets up to about 10, 11. Nothing too crazy. It's not going to blow the guys off the course, but wind is wind. And if you got 10 miles per hour more wind, or call it even 7 miles in the morning, why not take a few chances on those guys going off early in the morning on Thursday? Because I think Friday is a bit more neutral throughout the day. So that's a tiny weather edge there. And I think Victor's one of the few guys that gets off early on Thursday.
Yes, he does. He starts at 9 o'clock, and the other three guys above him are both, all three of them starting past 11. So, yeah, that is a good point. And, yeah. And, yeah, I'm completely aligned with you on Victor this week. And, 2024 has been somewhat of a struggle for him, like you said, and I've been waiting to play him here ever since he won the Tour Championship last year. And so, obviously he took a week off at the Phoenix Open last week. He was scheduled to play there. He flat out said he wanted to work on his game. And so, I think he's going to come into this event refreshed, ready to attack this course with the elite skill set that he has. And so, yeah, I'm not going to, even, his short game struggles, he made improvements. We've all seen them. I don't think it's a mirage. And so let's not forget, he has 3 wins in the last 8 months. And I mean, he was actually approaching world number 1 status at the end of last season. And so, when I see ownership, 16, 17%, he may even less in some spots, he's a guy I want to be early on instead of late. And so I'm completely jumping on board with him this week.
And with his around the green player on, I know a lot of people said he's left his coach. Cool. That's going to be a problem potentially in 3, 4, 5, 6 months time. You don't just, okay, I'm leaving my coach and just instantly forget what I was doing like a few weeks ago. Like that doesn't happen. These guys are good. The problem with leaving a coach is progressively, incrementally, your game deteriorates and breaks down. The coach is there to keep it polished. The polish is still, in my opinion, there for Victor. So we'll keep an eye on that around the green game that has seen some improvements over the last little while since he went with that coach and now has left him. But we'll see. I'm cool. I'm totally fine embracing the chaos with Victor this week.
And are you totally fading then the other three guys? Because I'll just speak really quick. So I think Rory I'm saying 12, 13%. Like I agree with you on Scotty. I'm still down a little bit with Scotty on POA. I don't think he's never finished better than 7th on POA grass surfaces, and so I think his best that was here actually a couple of years ago. So yeah, when I'm saying 25% ownership, and I see Rory at almost like half that. Rory with his carry distance. I know Rory's maybe kind of hit or miss, on POA as well, but I just think Rory's length off the tee, his total driving ability. He would be my second play up top.
Cool. I'm not playing 150 max again in a field like this. I'm going again to the single entries. I'm limiting my number of lineups. So I'm likely just starting with Victor in this range or just diving into 9s immediately. For people that do want to play someone else, I would suggest Scotty because I feel like I've got an outright on Scotty this week at 7.5 to 1. I think Scotty coming into this event, this golf course really suits what he does well, but he hasn't really shone at this venue in the past. He putts well here. He should ball strike this place to death, but he's come here the last 2 years having just won the waste management. This year he hasn't. And I've made that point pretty much in every single article, every single podcast I've spoken on this week about Scotty just showing up here, he's under the radar as much as he could be. Tiger's back in the field. JT's playing good golf. Rory's back. Max Homer's going to win in the hometown thing. Nick Taylor just won the waste management. There's lots of other narratives going on. Scotty Scheffler just hanging around, kind of. I think he's going to sneak up on some people, not ownership-wise, but I think he has a very good chance of winning this week, more so than in the past. So that's my take on Scotty. It's not analytically based at all. It's a bit of a weird situation, but maybe that's what it takes for him to get across the finish line. The 9s. I do like the 9s a lot. I think Max Homa is going to catch quite a lot of steam here just based off the course history. Not playing good golf right now at all at $9,800 by Max's standards. Colin Morikawa playing a bit better, actually, and also has played well here in the past. Patrick Cantley, Ludwig Aubert, and Justin Thomas kind of round out the 9K range there with Jordan Spieth at a flat 9-2. JT, phenomenal course history, playing fantastic. In fact, he leads the field in strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds. So you've got that going there, and he's one of the cheapest options. He is playing with Tiger Woods for the first 2 rounds. I'm curious as to see what he gets up to. And I've said this a few times on some shows. Everyone's saying that Justin Thomas is back. He's back. I totally agree he's back. But he's not. He's back to being who Justin Thomas was, and that's just finishing inside the top 5, constantly disappointing us until he gets all the way far down the leaderboard and then surges up to like win some random tournament. That's just basic. Not that the PGA Championship is random, but you get what I'm saying. Like he randomly wins. So I see it being popular this week, likely and rightly so, but there are other options. I'll be leaning into Colin, I think, in most instances there. I think his course history and form entering the week are like impeccable right now.
Yeah, I have 3 definite favorites in this range, and I'll start, Max Homa, with this being the last event in his beloved home state of California, combined with his past history here, I just can't quit him. I've been on him the last few weeks, but his last 4 trips here, again, course history matters here. 3rd most predictive on tour, according to Data Golf, and so. Yeah, he's finished 2nd, 10th, 1st, 5th. Just amazing. One of the best for any course for any player. His ball striking has been subpar the last 2 events, but when you look at his approach game here in the past, it's been stellar. And so, his putting is really the thing that sticks out to me. 3rd best putter in this entire field. And what I did using the rabbit hole is, again, I looked at, and we have a filter where you can actually go in there and select difficult green complexes to putt on, or the toughest courses to gain strokes putting. And so, when you combine that with POA and you go back and look at putting on between 5 to 15 feet, which is really important here because of how tough these greens are. He's the third best in the entire field. And so, to me, at 15% ownership, that's just a must buy for me. And then Cantlay, look at 9-3, very similar story to Max. He struggled ball striking in his last 3 events on courses he usually dominates at. But again, this may be blind hope on my part, but I'm going to trust in Cantlay's all-around skills at what I think is a value price here. And, yes, I'll close with JT. I think he's going to be very popular. If he was 10-1 instead of 9-1, I probably wouldn't play him. And I was very tempted to take an outright on him, but I agree with you. I don't think he's necessarily going to win this week, but at 9,100, his form has been
guy in.
Yeah, his form has been the best in the world when you go look. And I know it's only 6 weeks since the start of the year, but best in the world. I think he's averaging 2.7 runs strokes gained per round. And so, that's chalk at 9,100, a guy who has a really good chance to finish top 5, top 10. So yeah, JT would be my third guy in this range here.
And fun little fact, when they played the Nedbank down there in South Africa, that is on Kikuyu grass. I've played that golf course. It's a beautiful course. So Justin Thomas finishing, I think, 5th, and Max Homa obviously winning that tournament down there. Now, the strength of field, obviously, not nearly as incredible as it is this week, but is that old Patrick Candy calling you, Ron, and saying, hey, quit mentioning my name on pods. I want to also fly under the radar. Just you and I need to know that I'm going to play well this week.
I hope he plays well this week because him and Homa have killed me the last few weeks, but I'll give one more chance for both of them.
One more go, baby. Let's see. Just like a Jets fan, I think that's always what I say. Just give me one more year. Give me next year, next time. Yeah, I think we'll be fine. So I can relate to you there. Let's dive into the 8s where we've got Tony Finau, who I think he's one of the worst putters in the field over the last little while, going to a golf course that he lost to Max Homa in a playoff at. So a little bit of salt and pepper situation for Tony Finau. Tommy Fleetwood has won the Nedbank down in South Africa on Kikuyu grass. He's $8,800. Sam Burns kind of choked away a victory here 3 or 4 years ago. Sahith Theegala's had some good finishes here at 8,600. Cameron Young's got great course history here. Matthew Fitzpatrick, Wyndham Clark, Adam Scott. Like, it's all course history thoroughbreds in this range, or at least good course fits in this range. So that's why I'm kind of leaning into the 9K start, because then you can just kind of load up on a few of these 8K guys here who have got some seriously good upside. Maybe not win equity, but good upside in this 8K range, Ron. So before I go ahead and tell you all my favorite plays in the 8s, you do it first this time round.
Yeah, I'm actually dropping down a bit here. I'm kind of skipping the top half of this range. You look at the top half, and I know some people are on Sam Burns this week, but he does not have the best history when we get into these stacked, really strong fields. His par 4 scoring on difficult courses is actually 40th. Bogey avoidance is 37th in the field on difficult courses. So I'm kind of leaning away from him. I think Sahith at 8,600 is really interesting. He's a guy who, he has his low moments, but I just think his all-around game is almost getting to that point where, off the tee still worries me a little bit, but, his play around the greens, his streakiness, putting, I think at 8,600, he's a guy I'm willing to take some chances on. And then this little grouping right below him. I mean, Cameron Young, when we look at, his ownership, I'm seeing him, I know he's popular from an outright perspective heading in, but I'm seeing 12, 13%. I'm seeing Matt Fitzpatrick right below him at 13%. And, I think both of those guys, especially Young with his history here, with his off the tee game. So I love him. And then Fitz, I always come back to Fitz on difficult courses. This week is no different. So, you talk about, US Open champion. He wasn't all that bad last week at the Phoenix Open. He gained 4 strokes off the tee there. So, I think when you combine that with his short game and he kind of fits that mold for me. Obviously, approach is always his weakness, but he is better with the longer irons than he is with his wedges, which, again, like you said, is really important here. And even Wyndham Clark, I think, 8,300, I don't think he's getting the respect he deserves yet. And I'll drop down one more here. You even talk about Adam Scott, like his ball striking consistency. I know you've been talking about it as well throughout the week on your shows, but I mean, 8,200 for a guy who I think he's got 7 top 10s in his last 11 events. Like, I mean, he's in like the best stretch of his career. And of course, he won here. His last one was here in 2020.
Yep.
And so, I think Adam Scott, I know his ownership is getting up there right around 19-20%. And I don't think he's going to win this week, but it's kind of similar to JT. Like, if you're looking for just like you're trying to get guys through the cut line, like you cannot do any worse than Adam Scott. And I guess we should say, just so everyone knows, speaking of the cut line, because even I was confused at the start of the week, it's top 50 in ties. And also if you're within 10 strokes, of the leader, you also make it through. So, I mean, we could literally see 60, 65 guys, make it through this week. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just a little bit of a safe face for Tiger, the whole situation about his affinity for cuts. I think it's cool. I would have preferred a bigger cut, a more aggressive cut, but it makes betting, it makes watching, it makes the viewing experience more fun. But I get it. We want all the best golfers playing all 4 days, blah, blah, blah. So cool. Do what you got to do. I think most of these guys will be making it through regardless. Adam Scott, Ron, I totally agree with you there. This guy, he's got some of the best form entering the week. The ball striking is through the roof, and we go into a golf course that suits his. I mean, the classic what could go wrong situation. Yeah, I mean, everything just seems to be aligning. I, in fact, actually have it outright on him too. So those are my 2 bets, Scotty and Scott, the 2 little Scots there. So we'll see what cooks. We'll see. Both green jacket holders. I think we've got 5 of them in the field this week. I think there's a lot of comparisons to be made between Augusta and this golf course. Not necessarily that they have the same kind of layout because the fairways at Augusta are much wider, but the penal nature of missing a fairway here is not nearly as significant, as other golf courses, which is similar to Augusta. And then I think around the green play is essential. Being able to scramble, getting out of those bunkers is very important this week. And Adam Scott is incredibly good out of the bunkers, despite having lost. I went back and took a look. He hasn't played around the green well very much around this golf course, but with the ball striking the way it is, I think he can avoid that part of his game as much as possible because he's going to be hitting so many greens and he can putt. I think he gained like 7.2 strokes putting here in 2022 when he played here. So that's, he can at any given moment just ignite these greens up. And then a little sneaky play for me is Jason Day. I have him grading out as 5th in my model this week at $8,000. I have a matchup over Cameron Young with Jason Day at plus 125 over on DraftKings. I think Jason Day is primed to kind of just have one of those spike weeks. He's incredible out the rough. He's pretty good when it comes to having to hit the golf ball on tough to hit long golf courses. I'm not entirely sure what the rabbit hole would say with Jason Day in that department, but I think he kind of suits that venue quite nicely. And his putting on POA is sensational. Like if you're looking for upside based off someone's putting, Jason Day is sensational from 5 to 15 feet on POA. So I like Jason Day a lot. I like him in that matchup, and I think he's going to be a little sneaky player. I think he's kind of gone under the radar, especially in this 8K range with all these studs. So one other name I do want to mention, though, is Sam Burns. I think I really like Sam Burns a lot this week, too. If I never went with Scotty, I probably would have had a Sam Burns outright, but we'll see. Because I think, Ron, like the stuff that you have in the rabbit hole was like old Sam Burns in a way. He's playing some really good golf right now. So I'm hoping, I agree, there's a lot on a baseline kind of surface level that can go wrong with Burns, but the way he's just playing good golf at this moment, like he played well at Pebble, he played well at the Waste Management, like he's playing good on all these random golf courses. And when the driver is working for Sam Burns, that's when he starts generating momentum in the other areas of his game. And I think that's going to be something we're going to look at here because he enters the week as the 10th best driver in the field. And by the way, Sahith Theegala's 18th in off the tee strokes gained the last 24 rounds. So he's not nearly as bad off the tee as people are making him out to be. I think he's sneakily under the radar and improving that part of his game. So we'll see what he can get up to in that department. Diving into the sevens, we've got some fun names, and the ownership drop-off is significant once you get into the sevens. So if you are looking to kind of differentiate yourself, this will most likely be the range. We've got names like Keegan Bradley. We've got Nikolai Højgaard, JT Poston, who had one of his worst putting performances of his career last week. We have an Eric Cole who's now playing in his 7th straight start along with Tom Hoagie this week. That gives me major concern for Eric Cole. You can kind of see how his game's fallen off a little bit. Benny On sitting at $7,600. my favorite golfer in the world, Hideki Matsuyama, sitting at 74. We got all sorts of interesting names down here. We got Harris English and Adam Hadwin, two guys that were quite, one significantly popular that kind of blew up in the desert last week after great course history. Ron, there's names here that this is an important range. I think this is the range that differentiates your lineups. We're going to see in a 70-man field with a top-heavy field like this, the bottom 6K guys are going to be, like we'll get there. But these are names that still can finish inside the top 10, that if you can get them at under 5% ownership in this range is really going to get you different in this week's contest. So let me know who you're kind of leaning into.
And really quick, going back to what you said about, some of these guys playing, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, it's even more of a red flag when it's on a course like Riviera, where it's going to be a mental grind. And so it's not like, I would much prefer guys who have played a few weeks here and there, guys who, like a Victor, who took a week off, because it's going to be a challenge mentally. And so that also weighs on you as a player. So, but yeah, really quick, what are you seeing Willie Z at for ownership? Because I've got him at like 8% right now.
Yeah, he's pushing 14 where I'm looking. So that makes a bit more sense to me. I think the people that believe he's back are going to be playing him a lot. And I agree. I think he's back at a golf course he's played well at.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people for sure. And, I guess kind of what I did is, I'm placing such a high weight on past performance on other difficult courses, which I think has worked for me in the past, because you want to look at comparisons to Riviera. You don't want to just take, easy courses. And so my models consistently have Zalatoris in the upper tier, especially at a course like Riviera. And so, he's coming off a 13th place finish at another similar course in Torrey Pines. And there were numerous glimpses of the Zalatoris of old. He was 4th here last year. I think he gained like over 7 strokes ball striking. And so, yeah, for me, I was even 14%. I know people are hesitant with him. They still remember, the short game issues, but, he's proven he can do it here. And just something about Will when he gets to these strong fields, tough courses. I think it's one of the things I tweeted, like he's literally averaging like 3.4 strokes per round. Not a ton of sample size in his career, but it's just amazing numbers. And so for me, must play and be heavily overweight with him. I think, yeah.
Let's time travel a bit here before you dive into the rest of your guys. Let's go back a year to this time last year. What is Will Zalatoris' ownership and what is his price? First, give me the price and then let's think about his ownership.
Are you asking me to guess what it was?
Well, let's just assume, we got Will Z from 2023 entering this week now, but, let's avoid any sort of injury bug that we have in the back of our mind. Where would he, if he's back to being himself, what is his price this week?
I mean, I would say, considering, for the PGA Tour, this is a stacked field, I would at least have him anywhere between 8,500 and 9K, probably.
Yeah. I was thinking somewhere lower 9s for sure. That. If we think about how good he has been at this golf course and just kind of leading up, I think he would have played well at the Farmers, which he just kind of did this week. That kind of stuff would have leaned in. And I think he probably would have been pushing 15% in that price tag anyway. So if you kind of call him like a 9K golfer that's associated with 15% ownership, that's still fair in my opinion. I think he could absolutely finish inside the top 5, potentially win this thing. Like he's shown us, he's had the capabilities to do in the past. So just thought I'd take a second there to kind of just highlight that there are golfers that are mispriced because of the unknown, So if you're willing to embrace that, I think that can be a really beneficial part to your DFS lineups.
Yep, agree 100%. And a guy just below him, who I know some people are on more than others, but, you look at Nikolai Højgaard, when you look at what he's become, look at his past history, just not at this course because he's never played here, but looking at his recent performances, 31st at Pebble Beach, but you go before that, you see 2nd at Torrey Pines. Yeah. You go, and then some of these, obviously he's playing like some of these DP World Tour events, but the Dubai Desert Classic, he finishes 7th. Before that, he was 25th. He won the DP World Tour Championship, which had a pretty decent field. Back in November, and then he won the Nedbank, or not won, he was 2nd in the Nedbank. So he's had so he's had a really good stretch here. And, he's played all over the world. I think he's a great fit for this course with just his, struggles a little bit around the green, but just overall, he kind of fits that mold that I'm looking for here. And so I think you can, I just think he's a much better fit than a JT Poston, or definitely than an Eric Cole, who's kind of in this range for me. And so I love him. I love Ben On again. He's another one who let me down last week, but I just think 7,600. When you look at his distance off the tee,
scrambling ability,
his scrambling, his even his POA is one of his worst surfaces, and so that's obviously probably baked into the lower price here. But I love him. And yeah, I'll go down here just really quick. But Hideki, and I know you're tired of me talking about him, but he's almost in the same mold as Can't Land a Home. Like, I'm going back to him. This might be the last time, but I mean, we're looking at 7,400. And if you look at, let me pull this up real quick. It's not like he's been playing horrible. Like, if you look at the Farmers, I mean, even last week, he was 22nd last week. Okay. His short game carried him. Okay. What you need here, but he was 13th at the Farmers. He gained 3.8 on approach on a very similar course. And so if he was 8,400, I'm staying far away from him. But I mean, if you're trying to fit some value in here at the bottom half of your lineup, he's got a pretty decent course history here. He's played a lot recently. I think there was a quote out there that, he's feeling a little bit tired, but I'm going to be shoving him into a lot of the bottom of my lineups here. And, we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, there's a reason for that is there's not a lot that I'm super excited about below him. And I will get into some guys, in the 6Ks, but, guys like Brian Harmon, Corey Connors, their course history is pretty awful here.
Yeah.
And so, I'm done with Ricky. Ricky's a guy I'm moving on from right now until I see some glimpses of some better stuff from him. But like for me, it's pretty much Hideki, and that's about it. So I'm gonna ride.
Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna ride him one more time.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the Rich Eisen show much, Ron?
Yeah, he's a Michigan guy, so yeah.
Love Rich, and he gets the higher register. And I've never heard you kind of hit the higher register as hard as you did there with the Hideki. So if that gives you any sort of opinion of what you really think about a Hideki deep down, I understand the price tag and the appeal there, but we've yet to have a top 10 since the Players from Hideki. So at
you don't need a top 10 though, but you don't need it. You don't need it here. 7,400. Give me a top 20. I'm good with that.
Yeah, but Benny on the other hand, as a situation, $200 more, has had, I think, 3 top 5s in the last little while. So just putting that out there in the ether. There are some other guys you can go to if you aren't in the mood to follow Ron's sake with the Hideki there. I've just been completely off of him entirely. And the thing is, like, he chipped in for like multiple eagles. It was just tilting because I had a Tom Kim bet against Hideki with one of my other guys, and that was a fun bet to have because Tom came roaring up the leaderboard. Let's dive into the sixes. We got a few names here that can help you save some salary. And I think, if you're looking to play Scotty or Rory, you're probably going to have to dive into this range to some degree. A few interesting names right at the top are Kurt Kitayama and Emiliano Grillo. In my opinion, they are both entering the week playing pretty solid golf. Grillo, 31st in recent strokes gained. And we go to a golf course now where we see 45 to almost 50% of shots come from 150 to 200 this week. So call it half their shots almost come from that specific bucket range. And Emiliano Grillo is phenomenal with his irons from that range. And we saw him gain tons and tons of ball striking approach numbers last week at a similar golf course that has similar buckets. So we'll see what he can do this week at $6,900. The putter it's his best attribute right now, which is bizarre to think about. Emiliano Grillo gaining the 8th most total strokes gained putting in this field. So we'll see what he can do, but he's $6,900. Patrick Rogers is a California kid. He's got immense distance off the tee and obviously this, familiarity with this kind of a golf course. And then someone I really also like right in the top here, I really like the 6K range, is Tom Hoagie. If you take a look at what he's got up to, I think 3 of his last 4 starts have been top 20s. He finished top 20 here last year, and he enters the week with the 3rd best strokes gained approach numbers in this field. So that's exciting to see. And the putter has also been rolling for Tommy Tables. So we'll see what he can do there. And then I'll round out my top of the range here with Christian Bezuidenhout, who he's only got 9 shot link rounds in the last 24, but he's leading the field in strokes gained approach in those 9 rounds. It's a small sample size, but this guy's balling out. He's like really striking the ball right now. So Bezi's gained the 12th most total strokes in this field. And that's total. That doesn't matter where. You know, you're always going to have strokes gained total numbers. So that's the last 24 rounds. He's 12th in this field at $6,700 on a golf course that's not necessarily going to suit his distance lack of off the tee. But he's from South Africa. He's won. I'm pretty sure he's won the Nedbank or at least contended down there on Kikuyu grass. Like if anyone knows how to play this grass, it's him. $6,700. Guys striping it right now. So love those guys at the top. And then I'll throw in Mackenzie Hughes as my $6,300 dart. I just love what he can get up to on POA. If you got a $6,300 guy that can be elite for a given period of time, it's Mackenzie Hughes on the green. So that's my 6K guys. I kind of rattled off a few there on. I know you're a little tentative in this range, but do you have any guys that you're really convicted on?
One of my strategies, and we've talked about this before on the show, is when you have a stacked field, and yeah, it is. When you look at how heavy it is up top, it is hard to kind of separate a lot of those guys. So this is what I do in these events. I'm going to be really heavy on a few guys down here, and I'm going to, mix and match more of those upper tier guys. And so there's a few guys that I'm going to be relying on pretty heavily this week, and it's a little scary, but when you
That's
look at, yeah. And when I get down here, I'm looking for a couple things. One of them is course history. Another thing is ball striking. And so when I see Patrick Rogers, really good history here. He's got a 12th, he's got a 15th, and he's a course fit. And that's another thing I'm looking at. And so, I think his length off the tee, his ability to get hot on the greens, from California, he knows POA very well. So 6,800, love Patrick Rogers. And then Luke List is probably my favorite play of all down here. And he's going to be another guy I'm going to be kind of mixing and matching with Hideki, kind of the last guy in. But, he's got 5 top 30s here. He's kind of either making a top 30 or he's missing the cut. And so I'm fine with that kind of boom bust potential. Of course, we've seen him win, out here. And, he's a guy who, when you look at his ball striking, like he's top 10 in this field ball striking, when you combine off the tee and approach. So he's a guy I'm going to take a really strong stand on. I think Adam Svensson, his first year last year, he was 9th, but he's got win equity. Like he's proven, like he's won a couple times already on tour. He's sitting there at 6,600. I think you can get away with, playing 10, 12% of him. And my other dart throw down here, all the way down, 6,100, received an exemption from Tiger, Gary Woodland, playing with Tiger. He's a veteran guy, obviously kind of rusty still coming back off of his brain surgery. But, when you go back and look, and I know we're looking back maybe longer term here, 14th off the tee, 6th on approach, long term, looking at both of those. So I'm willing to take some chances on him at that low of a price. And of course that he, has had some success in, as well in the past, and he actually finished 9th there last year. So he's my dart throw down here.
I love it. That's a very affordable price tag for someone that could potentially break the slate. Because you'd rather want to be early on Gary Woodland than late, because he's not going to be 6,100. He's not going to be 2-3% owned anytime after he's played once, like really well. So we'll see what he can get up to. Another one random name is Kevin Yu, who is a boom. Like if you're playing like a multi-entry, like 1,000 plus contest, Kevin Yu needs to be in a few of your lineups, I think. If you're trying to just play a single entry situation, he could easily just ruin the chances of any success on Thursday. Like that's just how he goes. So he's boom or bust, but the ball striking is, oh man, for someone this far down on the price tag, Kevin Yu is incredibly talented in that department. So, all right, Ron, let's start off at the bottom here. Give me your favorite play south of $8,000, and I will give you mine. And potentially let's battle out we still have to do an audit of our last 2 episodes, because we can't quite remember who we've been convicted on to go against for the dollar bet. But let's battle out our cheapos this week.
Yeah, that's easy for me. Will Zalatoris, 7,900. Yeah, I might have him 50% this week. We'll see.
I love that play. I should have said, all right, give me anything south of $7,800 because now I'm stuck. Let's see. Give me. I think I'm going to have to take like Benny on to try and match Willie Z somehow. I don't know. I don't like my situation. I kind of set myself up for failure there, but I think.
What about Jason Day? Would you take him? Would he be your guy if you could go up to 8K?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that then. If you're more comfortable with him, I think that's a good matchup.
Yes, I agree with that. That would be nice. Ideally, I would have taken Adam Scott, but that's kind of pushing the bar there. So we'll see what cooks, but that was fun, Ron. Thank you for another awesome show for the Byron Betsperts Golf Show over here. Don't forget to go check out the rabbit hole. Reach out to my main man, Ron, over here. DM him for some great promo codes to get in there. If you aren't in the States that Vivid has the promo codes for, I see a lot of good guys endorsing the rabbit hole there, Ron. Taking advantage of that awesome tool you guys got going over at Betsperts.
Yeah, it's a good time at Betsperts. So yeah, and I've gotten word that prices are going up soon. So if you're locked in though, you're grandfathered in, and so yeah, I encourage anyone else who wants to jump on board here in the next few weeks or so to do so. And yeah, DM me if you have any questions. And another thing is, if you see anything that you want added, fixed, improved upon, definitely not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to make improvements and try to become the best data site possible that's out there.
Awesome. Great stuff, guys. Remember, it is a small field this week. Ownership is going to be condensed at the top of the board over there. Be sure to pivot your face off.